our series through the season of Lent of the parables of the kingdom and Jesus' invitation to come and see. We turn this week to Matthew 13, verses 31 through 35. Listen again for God's word to us this day. He put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that someone took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all the seeds, but when it has grown, it is the greatest of shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed in with 3 measures of flour until all of it was leavened. Jesus told the crowds all these things in parables. Without a parable, he told them nothing. This was to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet. I will open my mouth to speak in parables. I will proclaim what has been hidden from the foundation of the world. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Would you pray with me? Now, O Lord, grant that the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts might be acceptable in your sight. O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. What do you think heaven is like? Children who were asked that question offered some wonderful answers. 10-year-old Kristen responded, I think that the streets are gold, the waters are crystal, and the houses are made of clouds, and in God's room there are lots of TVs so God can see what we're doing all the time. 6-year-old John offered, yellow dogs are in heaven because the streets are made of gold. They are both yellow. 7-year-old Danielle said, I think I will have my own room and not with my brother in heaven. Children definitely see heaven as a place. They get that from us. We've thought about it that way for a long time. In 1623, astronomer Conrad Aslakos described heaven as a stately city where we shall be secure from all hurt, where the virtuous dead will see God face to face, where we shall behold the bright companies of angels, the radiant assemblies of sacred patriarchs, prophets, and apostles, the infinite number of crowns of joyful and triumphant martyrs and saints. He went on to describe it as a place of, quote, wisdom without ignorance, memory without oblivion, understanding without error, and reason resplendent without darkness. Does that resonate? Some describe heaven more as a feeling. It is peace, joy, serenity, and calm. Others see heaven as more of an event, a grand reunion of loved ones. The night before I left for college, I had a wonderful dream. It was a going-away party there at the 2-bedroom apartment with green shag carpeting my mom and I lived in. As I went around the room and everybody was wishing me well, I realized there were people there who had died. It was amazing. The last person to greet me was my grandfather, who died my freshman year in high school, and he gave me a giant hug, and then I woke up and I could smell him. It was a taste of heaven. I certainly hope there is some sort of grand reunion in the sweet by and by. When most of us consider heaven, it is indeed an otherworldly place where feelings of peace and joy and contentment resound in our souls, where we reunite with those who have gone before us and spend a blissful, carefree eternity, where there's so much gold they use it as asphalt to pave the streets. It's a place beyond this space and time, a place we go after we die. And yet, is that what the Bible describes? While some of these images can be found in the book of Revelation, it's certainly not what Jesus ever describes. In Matthew 13, he offers 6 parables that begin with the phrase, the kingdom of heaven is like. Today's first parable likens heaven to a tiny mustard seed that's planted and grows over time into a huge shrub and then eventually into a giant tree. I've never seen a mustard tree, neither have artists. That's why we had to go with the mulberry tree from Van Gogh for the bulletin in the sanctuary today. Closest I could find to a mustard tree. The second parable compares heaven to leaven, a sort of sourdough starter that a woman mixes with 3 measures of flour. For the record, that's not 3 cups of flour. 3 measures of flour is somewhere between 40 and 60 pounds of flour. It's what Abraham says to Sarah to prepare some loaves for 3 visitors. Hey, honey, go mix up 50 pounds of bread. Heaven's like that. According to Jesus, heaven is more of a process than a place. It's the growth of mustard from a small seed into a shrub and eventually into a great tree, a home for all the birds. It's mixing in yeast and kneading, shaping, and creating wonderful sourdough boules for thousands. It's a process that does not make sense in the world. Mustard doesn't grow into trees. And unless you're running a commercial bakery, who mixes sourdough starter with 50 pounds of flour? And yet, according to Jesus, heaven is like that. So if Jesus describes heaven more as a process, then why do we have all of these images of heaven as an otherworldly place we go after we die? Well, for some, perhaps it's because life is so hard here. That was certainly true for the 7 churches of Asia to whom Revelation was written. That's why the book focuses so much on the coming world, the next world, the kingdom of God. Because the realities of this world are just too overwhelming for them. And maybe that's true for those living in the 21st century who focus faith on heavenly hopes. Faced with insurmountable challenges in this world, we turn our focus to hopes for the next. That's certainly been true for Christianity as expressed in oppressed communities through the ages. It was true for slaves in the 19th century or people living under the oppression of unrelenting poverty today. They stay in church all Sunday long thinking about heaven, singing about heaven. It's true for those who have lost loved ones here, whom we long to reunite with after death, and for those who face the reality of terminal illness today, for whom life in this world is short. Sometimes hope for a world beyond this world is all we have. But sometimes an otherworldly focus of faith is rooted in a desire to keep this world the way it is, because it's working pretty well for us. When Christianity became the religion of the empire way back in the 4th century AD, the hope of the gospel shifted from the kingdom of heaven coming to this world, as Jesus proclaims in Matthew and Mark and Luke, to a destination we go to after we die. Those in charge of the empire, well, they weren't interested in a gospel that promised the transformation of this world. They liked this world just like it was. Thank you very much. They ran it, so they wanted to perpetuate it. So the gospel became focused on how you get your ticket punched to get to the next world in order to keep status quo in this world. This is what Karl Marx meant when he critiqued religion as, quote, the opiate of the masses. He wasn't right about much, but he was right about that. Faith became about being a good citizen of the empire. Go to church, pay your taxes, live by the rules, and when you die, you'll go to heaven. And such faith indeed perpetuates the status quo. For people for whom the ways of this world work pretty well, a faith that focuses on an otherworldly heaven, well, that works just fine. And yet that is not at all what Jesus describes. He describes a small seed that grows into something greater than anyone could have imagined, providing a home for all the birds. He describes how just a pinch of yeast can change the nature of 50 pounds of flour. He describes just a little something that can change everything. Heaven's like that, according to Jesus. As New Testament scholar N.T. Wright describes, salvation for Jesus is not an escape to heaven beyond the universe, but a stranger, more radical hope of renewal and recreation of this world. So, where do you place your faith these days? Does faith perpetuate the ways of this world for you? Or does it hope for a change to this world? Do you find yourself hoping to hang on to the world as it is? Or longing for something more on this side of eternity? A recent guest essay in the New York Times was headlined, "Teenagers are telling us something is wrong with America." It was written by Jamison Webster. She is a clinical psychologist and psychoanalyst. Webster works with teens, and unfortunately, lately, business has been booming for her. We've talked about the statistics regarding mental health among our youth, the prevalence of anxiety and depression they are experiencing, and I pray that the world will be something different for these 5 babies we've baptized here in the sanctuary this morning. We've seen in headlines how girls are internalizing all that anxiety into depression, and boys are lashing out in violence and anger. Webster writes, "Many adolescents I see immediately want to exit the world stage, as if all the options are already on the table, played out, disenchanted, and the only choice is to disappear or take medicine or get famous or detach or other versions of disappearing, with suicide being the most extreme." They long to escape this world. Life is just too hard here. Teens see their parents running as hard as they can on the hamster wheel of life, yet failing to find any meaning or significance. So they wonder, what's the point? And yet the pressures to get into the right college or to get the right jobs or make the right kind of money so that they can repeat their parents' patterns, those pressures grind on their souls every day. And this is all unfolding in a world where climate scientists continue to raise serious alarms about the future of our planet. And where politics are tearing our country and our churches and our families apart. No wonder our teens are struggling. Webster suggests that they are our canaries in the coal mine, telling us that things in this world are not working. Something's got to change. She writes, "Adolescents are lightning rods for the zeitgeist. They live at the fault lines of a culture, exposing our weak spots, showing the available array of solutions and insolubilities. They're holding up a mirror for us to see ourselves more clearly. And truth be told," she concludes, "we all have these questions about how precarious life is in this country. How to live with the hopelessness about the future that is emerging, and how all of this is coming up against the pursuit of self and freedom so celebrated in America." So, how does faith respond? Do we seek to escape this world? Exit the world stage, as Webster put it, set our sights and our hopes on the sweet by and by after we die? to do so will simply maintain the status quo, and our children are too important for that. Is that faithful? So what do we do? I used to believe the church could change the world. I'm not sure I do anymore. I used to believe that the church could solve the affordable housing crisis and the challenges facing public education, but I'm not sure we have the power or the influence to do that. It takes so much time and energy to build just 100 units of affordable housing. Charlotte needs 35,000. It takes an investment of hundreds of hours to help one child get on reading on their grade level, and last year less than 20% of third graders in CMS could. I don't think we can change the world. I believe God can, and I believe God will. And I wonder what it looks like for us to trust that. Our call isn't to change the world. Our call is to bear witness to a different world, the kingdom of heaven. We are to show this world a different possibility, a different set of values, a different kind of life. In a world that says God helps those who help themselves, we live by a different law: love your neighbor as yourself. In a world that calls us to live in fear of the other, amid politics that fuel the very worst of our fears, we're called to love our enemies and to bless those who persecute us. In a world that worships power and prestige and profit, we serve a God whose power is made perfect in the self-giving love of the cross of Jesus Christ. This is the way of the kingdom of heaven. When we live by this faith, we point to a different world. I think that's what's happening at our youth ministry's regular mental health check-ins. Amid their anxiety-ridden world, they gather in the Cornerstone house and sit around the table and talk and point to the possibility of a different world by offering a safe place where they can share their fears and process their feelings and work those giant monsters down to size, putting it all in perspective. It's a place where all that this world tells us we need for happiness and purpose and meaning is called into question, and a different set of values are explored. Granted, over against the staggering statistics our young people face, it feels like a drop in the bucket. Or maybe it's a mustard seed, a seed of hope in a world drowning from despair. Like one Habitat house built amid an affordable housing crisis, or a St. Augustine reading tutor working with one child of the 150,000 in CMS. Just a tiny mustard seed. But what could God do with that? It can take root and it can grow, and before you know it, it's a shrub. And then it's a great tree, and all the frightened birds of the world find safe haven in its branches. It's like a tiny pinch of yeast mixed into pounds and pounds of flour that our bread-baking God mixes into this mess of a world, giving rise to something beyond our wildest dreams. Beloved, according to Jesus, heaven is like that. Thanks be to God. Amen.